This week on Back to the Movies, it's the Threequel Spectacular.
Power feels good.
The immortal Captain Sparrow.
Better out than in, I always say.
We're going back to the movies. 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 Yeah.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Back to the Movies, the silver screen time machine where my co-host and I travel back to a specific year of cinema history and explore what made it special. This season, we're looking at the year 2007. I'm your host, Ben, and with me as always is my co-host, Nat McGee.
Hi, Ben. We're back for another week of movies. Can you believe it?
Big week. Biggest possible week.
Oh my God. I feel like I just ran a marathon. I have been watching these threequels and I'm at wit's end. Pirates of the Caribbean at wit's end.
Nat, do you remember in college when we used to each order one large pepperoni pizza from the pizza place down the way and we would eat it ourselves? That's how I feel right now.
Oh God. Yeah, I feel overstuffed, overserved, and man, I'm really excited to talk about these movies though. This has been a journey through my past.
Yeah, how can you not be excited? It's the Threequel Spectacular. It's our big blowout episode where we talk about three of the biggest sequels that all happen to be threequels that came out in the year 2007. We're bringing on some help. We're bringing on a very special guest. He's a writer. He's a friend from college. He was actually there at what one could call the origins of Back to the Movies. Nat, you're in my first on-air recorded thing.
Yeah.
Our broadcast debut. His name is Gabirel Laks. Gabe, we're so glad to have you. How you doing?
Hey, thank you so much for having me, guys. I just feel honored to be part of the Back to the Movie story.
You're in on the ground floor. It's only up from here, baby.
Yeah, I'm happy to be the Pete Best of Back to the Movies.
Gabe, I was wondering if from memory, if you could quickly just recap what our previous show was. The three of us made a radio show together, and I wanted you to tell our listeners what that was.
Yeah, man. We were all in college together. I ended up transferring colleges, so I was only there for a year with these guys. But during that year, we hosted a show together on the college radio network called The President's Club, which was a show with many areas of focus.
Yes, quite the variety hour.
And a dedicated fan base.
Yeah.
3 people.
Yeah, maybe less than 3, maybe 2.5.
I think we would average about 6 people, but one of them did make a making of documentary.
Yeah, there's a making of. Oh, we gotta find that. We gotta find that. I have the episodes too, and let me tell you, they are god awful. They are really bad. With all the presidential impersonations and the sexual jokes, it is the early work. You always want to just destroy that shit. So we'll do a burning sometime.
You know what is I think really actually interesting about the President's Club, which featured at its core a pre-written, pre-recorded sketch in which we all impersonated badly various presidents from throughout history.
Yes.
That was born out of us goofing around on film sets. And I actually think that's a really interesting thing to keep in mind. Whenever you're watching a movie, particularly a big movie like the ones we're going to talk about today, there were hundreds of man hours basically wasted. Film is the ultimate, hurry up and wait industry where you do a lot of work and then you do no work at all.
But how many President's Clubs were born from the production of Pirates 3, Spider-Man 3, and Shrek 3? Probably hundreds of friendships just forged in the fires. So it's not all bad, okay?
Yeah.
I would say it's not unreasonable to think there were maybe hundreds of sketch shows born of these movie sets.
Born and died during the year-long production cycle or whatever.
Yeah, there had to be some UCB students PAing on Pirates 3.
So we often like to just quickly cover if we watched anything good this week. It's a nice, light way to ease into our bigger topic of discussion. You guys actually watch any good movies this week?
I mean, we're gonna get into our personal opinions on these prequels, Ben. We're not gonna op-ed this early on, okay? But I did on Saturday night. I watched Mad Max Fury Road, and it was really good. It's a 5-star movie. I think it's honestly the best movie made in this century so far. It's a bold claim, but I stand by it. I stand by it, and yeah, I love that movie so much. What about you, Gabe? Have you watched anything good other than these threequels recently?
Yeah. Besides the threequels, I watched Gosford Park last night, and I'd never seen it before, and I really enjoyed it quite a bit.
Gabe, I love that you watched Gosford Park because I also watched a Robert Altman movie. That's what I wanted to talk about.
Ooh.
I watched California Split for the first time.
Oh, I just watched that for the first time the other week.
That movie is so good. God damn it. It's that classic Robert Altman thing where for like the first hour and a half, it's just this sort of lightly amusing, very honest character study here of like degenerate gamblers. And then the ending just sneaks up behind you and murders you.
Mm-hmm.
Damn.
Oh God, I love that movie. Elliot Gould's so good in it.
Yeah, Elliot Gould's cool. I thought all the outfits George Segal wore in it were very cool.
that is sort of your style there, I feel like. Or at least it was in college.
Yeah, it's still like that, but maybe a little better fitting, but similar otherwise.
I watched one other thing this week that I want to talk about, which is I watched the Sizzle reel for upcoming Marvel films.
Okay.
It was like a trailer, just for all the movies that they have coming up. It starts with the Stan Lee quote, and then it's got a shot of people in the theater watching Avengers Endgame. And then it's got like clips from the other thing, and it's always cut between titles talking about how great it's going to be to go back to the movie theaters.
Back to the movies.
And I started to cry. To cry at the thought of being able to go back to a movie theater because we're so close and it's been so long. All right, we should move on though. We should talk about our fans. Hey, if you're a fan of this show, please leave us a 5-star review. We really appreciate all the help you can give us to getting the word out about the show because we want to grow our community. And we're going to shout out a little bit of fan engagement right now. Nat, you found something that somebody wrote about us?
Well, yeah, our socials, the videos, the reels that we made are taking off, and I wanted to just share some of the comments that we've gotten on your Transformers video, which now has like 30,000 views, which I'm blown away by. Thank you for the fan support. Here's one about Transformers inspiring dubstep. Hello Raptor said, no, Transformers did not inspire dubstep. Dubstep was way before in the underground scene in the UK. But the artists Funtcase, Excision, Downlink, Space Laces started using sounds like those. Even Transformers sound design is made by artists such as Moody Good, Skrillex, and Excision. So that was from Hello Raptor. We were very uninformed.
What a great comment.
Yeah, when we were talking about dubstep. And then from Sample Text Variant on Instagram, they said, Michael Bay's Prime is cool, but he is not Optimus Prime. So
if you want your thoughts, your questions, your comments read out on the show, leave us a 5-star review. Follow us on social media at BttM Pod on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, or send us an email at bttmpod@gmail.com.
Yes, we really want a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, and it's super easy to do.
Let's talk about sequels. Let's talk about threequels.
Oh my God, here we go.
2007 was a year of sequels. Nat, you pulled a list of sequels that came out in 2007. Do you want to just run down this really quick?
I'm really proud of this. I went really deep to find all the big sequels that came out in 2007. So here they are. You got these 3 movies: Shrek the Third, Spider-Man 3, and Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End, which we're going to talk about on this very episode. In addition, you have 2 movies that we've already talked about on Back to the Movies: Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, and The Bourne Ultimatum. But in addition, you have Ocean's 13, Rush Hour 3, National Treasure Book of Secrets, Live Free or Die Hard, Evan Almighty, Mr. Bean's Holiday, Resident Evil Extinction, Elizabeth, The Golden Age, Hannibal Rising, Are We Done Yet? Daddy Day Camp.
Wait a second. Nat, when I read the notes and you wrote, Are We Done Yet? I thought that was like a joke about how long the list was going.
No, that's the sequel to Are We There Yet with Ice Cube.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Then in addition, you have all your horror sequels. 28 Weeks Later, Saw 4, Hostel 2, Alien vs. Predator, Requiem, Wrong Turn 2, Dead End. And then finally, not really a sequel, but a sign of things to come, the Halloween soft reboot. So, quite a lot.
That's right.
Quite a lot of sequels action this
I love
year.
that there's an Elizabeth sequel.
You got
like,
a sequel for everyone.
That's like, how long was that since the first one? It was like 11 years or 10 years? Like, it was a long time.
Yeah, Mr. Bean as well. Like, that's 10 years later. It's insane. It's a lot of sequels. It's unbelievable. And just like straight up sequels. No extended universe bullshit, which we're in now. This is just like part 2.
Yeah, it is interesting. 2007 is a very interesting year for blockbuster movies. I mean, I guess that's what we'll
Interesting's
talk about
the
this
nice
episode.
word for it.
I guess I just mean that like a certain type of blockbuster movie filmmaking was ending, and like you have all these movies, these like franchises hitting some sort of like past their prime moment, and then next year Iron Man comes out and
Changes
big
the
summer
game.
movies are yeah.
It's that 1-2 punch of Dark Knight and Iron Man at the same time that just changes.
And Obama being elected.
Changes
The whole world's
everything.
different in 2008.
But
That's true. The like late bushier stuff of these movies is a little fun, or not.
Oh,
fun, but
we've
like
been talking
interesting.
about it. It's so prevalent. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But what I like about these 3 that we're going to talk about today is that these aren't the Die Hard Part 4 that just kind of came out of nowhere. These are all 2000s franchises. They are of their time, and I think they all had stuff afterwards, but I feel like they all peaked in the 2000s.
This is the crest of the wave for basically all of them.
Yeah.
They started with a success and then continued to grow until this point, and now this is the beginning of the end in some ways.
Yeah.
So how did we get here for these 3 movies? That's an important piece of context we have to set up before we talk too much about them themselves. Shrek 1 comes out in 2001. It is a smash hit. It makes just shy of $500 million worldwide. It's number 4 on the domestic box office for 2001.
It has All Star as its theme song.
Who can forget the opening of that film?
Mm-hmm.
Oh
Shrek
my
flushes
God.
the outhouse. He kicks the door open and Smash Mouth starts playing.
And a new millennium begins.
Number 2 is even bigger than the first one. It makes just shy of $1 billion in 2004. It is number 1 on the domestic box office. It is at that time the highest grossing animated film of all time.
It's a big deal. Shrek,
Shrek is on top coming into 2007.
the voice of a
Shrek
generation.
is the king of the hill, and these other 2 pretenders are challenging Shrek for the throne of the biggest, most all-consuming box office sensation.
That's what this is all about at the end of the day with these 3 movies. It's about making the most goddamn money.
The most goddamn money you possibly can. So Pirates of the Caribbean.
I think Caribbean. Who says Pirates of the Caribbean?
It sounds like a nice resort, maybe like a themed resort.
Caribbean.
The first film makes $650 million in 2003. It's number 3 in the box office that year. The second one makes over $1 billion in 2006. It's the number 1 film domestically of that year. So that franchise rocketed to the top. All right, last one we got to talk about, the Spider-Man franchise. The first film makes $820 million in 2002. It is the number 1 film that year. It is the first film in history to make over $100 million in its opening weekend.
Wow. Now it's like that's normal, right?
Yes. I mean, now if a movie doesn't make $100 million its opening weekend, like a tentpole blockbuster, it's a disaster. But there was this crazy race to see which film would be the first to do it. And people thought Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone was going to be the first, but it fell just short.
What did Harry Potter and
Spider-Man-
the Sorcerer's Stone make?
It's somewhere in like 860, 870, 890, somewhere in that
Oh.
range.
Who, you know.
And then Spider-Man comes
How
out
fucking
in
pathetic.
the summer of 2002 with it, it's in the post 9/11 like desperate need for heroes, and just dominates, becomes a cultural sensation.
Spider-Man jumping in front of that American flag.
He does do that in every one of the Raimi movies. Yeah.
Including number 3.
So
Which
good.
it feels really perfunctory in that.
So good.
But the bloom's a little bit off the rose for Spider-Man because the second Spider-Man film comes out in 2004, the same year as Shrek 2, and it winds up number 2 at the box office. It gets unseated by Shrek, making just shy of $800 million. So these are 3 of the biggest franchises in Hollywood history. They are all less than a decade old. They have all been contending for the top spots at the box office. Every year they have released films.
What a fun time to be a box office junkie. Because now it's boring. Now it's like the Disney movie will make the $1 billion. You had these 3 movies, 4 movies really with Harry Potter, just duking it out. And I feel like now it's the Marvel movie will win. Maybe the shitty franchise reboot will make $100 million. The Jurassic World.
It did really feel like these were unassailable titans. Like there was like a different class of movie that was the blockbuster franchise movie. And this is sort of the end of it. Like we talked about when Iron Man comes out and the MCU does this connected universe thing where like the idea of what a franchise is changes so radically, so quickly that this almost feels quaint now, right?
It felt very quaint. Especially during Spider-Man. I was like, I can't believe this is only 14 years ago. This feels like 100 years ago. Antiquated AF.
Do you guys go easier on blockbusters from a pre-Marvel age? Because I feel like I kind of do now, just because they feel so different. Even if they're worse than the movies that are coming out now, just because they feel different, I think I like them
I'm just
more.
nostalgic for a time when Hollywood was run amok, but there weren't streaming services yet eating into their bottom lines.
Yeah, back when the free market worked, you know.
I do feel like they feel like movies, like the movies that I grew up with, where it's like, I'm going to go see a movie, and it's not this like mishmash of content where like all the movies are connected and like everything is on a blue screen. And
What are you talking about? Did you not watch Pirates 3?
Pirates 3 I think is the precursor to...
It's the Herald of Doom.
It's the Herald of Doom. But something like Spider-Man 3, I was like, this feels like a movie. It's a big blockbuster that they filmed in New York City. They didn't go to Vancouver. There's no bullshit where they're teasing.
They're not in a parking lot in Atlanta.
Yeah.
Hey, I'll tell you what they did. They shot it on film.
Yeah.
Celluloid, 35 millimeter.
Hell yeah, dude.
I'm saying that like a jackass, but I actually do believe that makes
Yeah.
a difference.
No, it does. And it feels like a movie. It feels like a fun summer blockbuster. And I don't get the same heebie-jeebies from Marvel movies. I love to hate on Marvel movies on this podcast.
I do.
I was going to ask if this was a pro or anti.
This is an anti-Marvel stance. This is a
Civil War podcast.
Oh, wait,
when it
Ben,
comes
are
to
you
Marvel.
pro-Marvel?
Oh, I'm
movie?
so pro-Marvel.
Oh, interesting.
He
I love
cried.
this Marvel.
He cried at Marvel propaganda.
I did. Though it really wasn't the Marvel part of it, because I recognized that was some really shitty, like, corporate product management stuff where they wanted me to be excited about the fact that the new Black Panther movie has a title now.
Yeah.
But I am excited that it has a title now.
Bring me back to Spidey, where it's like it's weird. It's like it exists alone. It's just the movie. It's hard to explain my feelings here. It feels like you would get a DVD of this movie and it wouldn't be on a streaming service. Does that make sense? It's not just like a constant stream of shit. It's like a movie.
And there's no obligation to like commit to it as a
right.
franchise,
You
right?
sit down, you watch 2 hours. Exactly. So for that, I respect it.
All of these are cynical products at
so
heart. But I do
goddamn
think
cynical.
they do, at least for the ones I like, and it's cloaked in nostalgia, but I do think that like a Spider-Man 3 has the veneer of caring about storytelling.
I will say this for the 2 of the films we watched. They are director-driven films, and both of those directors are talented. And so there is something engaging about that where it doesn't feel as studio controlled as it seems like it should be. It doesn't feel producer driven the way the Marvel films do. There is a unique voice at work in 2 of these films.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I completely agree with you there.
So let's talk about the third film, the film that isn't part of that first. Let's talk about Shrek the Third.
Oh boy.
Where are you guys at on Shrek the franchise and Shrek the Third as it fits into that?
I dig the first two Shreks. I think they're really good. I think they're funny. I think they're fun animation. They're weird. They have a lot of great like pop music drops. And, you know, it's lovable. It's like Mike Myers, Eddie Murphy. I like them a lot. I rewatched Shrek 2 for this project that we're doing. And it was good. It was fun. It was everything I could ask for of a sequel.
You haven't addressed Shrek 3.
Oh, Shrek 3 is awful. It's really bad. It's a very bad movie.
How about you, Gabe? Where are you at on this?
Yeah, I thought Shrek 3 was pretty bad. But with Shrek as a franchise, I don't know, like, I like Shrek, but I don't have that much nostalgic attachment to it. I saw the second one in theaters. I think I saw the first one because, like, a substitute teacher put it on or something.
It is funny that Shrek is the number one movie of these. Like, I could see it being, like, a number 7, a number 8, but the fact that it's number 1 is a bit, like, disconcerting. You're kind of like, what the fuck?
This is the movie that America decided it wanted to, you know, vault up to the heavens?
Yeah, that is weird. Ben, do you like Shrek?
I liked them fine is a pretty good way to describe it. Obviously, I loved the first Shrek when it came out in 2001. Like,
Yeah.
I was fucking 11 years old. It had fart jokes in it. And, like, it had Eddie Murphy, who I loved in 2001. And, you know, I still love today. I rewatched the first one for this, and I thought it was fine. The animation is horrifically bad.
Yeah.
Not just that it looks bad
Yeah.
because the CGI is not up to snuff, but the character animation is terrible. They might as well be like, you know, like stock joint and ball puppets. They have no life.
The humans are really creepy.
Oh God.
They're horrendous.
They're so bad. But, you know, there are some funny jokes in there, and I like a couple of the performances. I would say it's fine. It's inoffensive. It's whatever. And then we got to the third one, and I found it mostly just sort of mildly irritating. To me, it was the perfect corporate product movie, where everything about it is designed to just go down smooth at the lowest common denominator without ruffling too many feathers.
So, because you just called it the perfect corporate movie, I made another list for this episode.
It's the list episode.
It's the list episode. So, Shrek the Third, as it is called. It's Shrek the Third because he's a king.
I kind of like the title. I thought that was a fine. That's a fine title.
I like the title
for Shrek
too.
3.
Yeah, for Shrek 3. So,
how about more like Shrek the Turd? Am I right?
Here he goes.
Okay, listen. Let me tell you a story about corporate partnerships. Shrek the Third partnered up, DreamWorks or whoever made this movie. I think they were trying to go for a world record of how many corporations could they team up with to just plaster Shrek on every product. So they teamed up with McDonald's, Kellogg, Mars, General Mills, Frito-Lay, PepsiCo, Hewlett-Packard, Energizer, and more. And I have a brief list of products. You have Shrek cereal for Shrek the Third, Shrek Cheez-Its, shaped like Shrek, Shrek Snickers with green Shrek filling, Shrek Swamp Pops, which were green popsicles, Shrek Eggo with the character portraits printed onto the Eggo in full color with food coloring, Shrek Go-Gurt, of course, Shrek M&Ms with the Shrek logo around the M, and Shrek Cheetos that turn your tongue green. They turn your tongue green.
Hey, what was up with food dyeing your tongue? Why was that a thing that people wanted?
It's fun. It's body modification. You can't get a piercing. You turn your tongue green for 25
Get a
minutes.
green tongue.
It's kind of fun when you're a kid to stick your tongue out and it's
a different
red,
color.
like purple or
Yeah.
something. Yeah, or green because it's green like Shrek's tongue.
Yeah.
Is Shrek's tongue green?
You may have noticed those were all edible products, but you also had your non-edible products. You had Shrek the Third Eau de Toilet Spray. You had Shrek the Third Clean as an Ogre Bath Kit. All of the McDonald's employees in the world had to wear a Shrek the Third employee name tag. with Shrek's face on it. You could buy the Donkey Dragon pink plushie if you wanted one of those donkey babies in your house. And finally, you could buy the Shrek the Third dog Halloween costume.
See, this is what I'm talking about. The movie just exists for them to sell licenses to manufacturers and to other like corporate synergy partners. The movie itself is irrelevant at that point. It's just a brand that they can stamp onto a Cheez-It.
It's like Abercrombie and Shrek. No, it's soulless. It's soulless. And it wasn't directed by the director of the first two. It was directed by some guy who had animated.
He was a voice actor.
I think he was also an animator. And I don't even know his name, but I don't say this lightly because I try not to dehumanize our directors that worked really hard on these movies, but I have a feeling that the guy who directed this was a hack. I don't think he brought his all to the artistic
and his
vision.
name was Walt Disney. His name was Miyazaki.
Yeah.
Hey, man, that's a solid 9-to-5 job. Directing
I know.
Shrek
No,
3.
because a couple episodes ago, we were really hating on the director of Good Luck Chuck, but I was trying to be like, but he is just a man like you and I. And Ben was like, he's a fucking hack.
That's an accurate representation of our conversation. Yes, I agree with that.
So I don't use the term lightly, but this movie was just soulless. It just didn't have anything.
We'll get into the details of why after we do this for all three of the films, because we're going to do something a little bit different, listeners. We're going to kind of talk about the three films together, but I definitely want to get your guys' takes up front, just so we know where we are going in.
Sure. So let's move on.
So you guys both really love Shrek. You stand for Shrek. I'm the only sane person here saying that Shrek is terrible.
Well, we don't
Yes,
like the
that's
third one.
correct.
We don't like the third one. We like the first two.
Let's talk pirates. Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End. Gabe, where are you at on pirates? Are you a pirate person?
Kinda. I do like the Pirates movies. I think they're a good time.
Have you seen those later ones? The ones that are from Beyond the Grave?
I feel like I've seen parts of the fourth one, and I watched the fifth one that Javier Bardem is in on a plane.
Wow. As it was meant to be seen.
Bardem is Captain Salazar.
Great. That's good. Let's just leave that here.
I don't know if your listeners are aware.
I was a very big fan of the first movie. I owned the DVD. I thought it was wonderful. I thought it was like one of the best movies ever. I was 13 years old. And then the second movie came out 3 years later, and I was 16 years old. And man, it was like when you lose your innocence. I was so disappointed. But then I was like, I gotta finish it out. So I went to go see the third, and by the time the third had ended, I wished I hadn't gone. I was like, I will never trust a franchise again. And I think that was after Spider-Man 3. So I was just done. I was really sad. I wanted it to be great, and it wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
I will say, though, I didn't rewatch until this month. The other two, I did not hate them as much this time around. I found more to love about them. I think I was just so overwhelmed.
You're such a big fan of Johnny Depp personally that his performances really work for you.
Pre-2005, I was. Yeah. A wonderful career. If he had died in a plane crash in 2005, we'd have him in murals everywhere in the world. Listen, once Wonka happened, it was over for me and Depp. But before that, like, come on. Gilbert Grape, Fear and Loathing, Ed Wood, Edward Scissorhands. These are great movies with great performances. I can't say that Depp is no good. He just, I don't know what happened.
We'll talk Sparrow when we talk characters. I don't want to
we'll talk Sparrow.
I don't want to get deep into Sparrow now because
Okay.
that's too rich a vein to tap for our brief takes on the film.
I think we could record a whole. I don't know if you guys have a Patreon to do a Sparrow episode. Yeah.
I was pro Pirates. I loved the first Pirates of the Caribbean. That was just prime blockbuster era for me. I loved, fantasy films. I loved big action adventure films. That film is so charming and so lovely. And by the time this film comes around, I've become a fan of Gore Verbinski, the director of the film. I had started to follow him as a director, his Ring remake. some of his other films.
I'm a big fan of The Mexican. Julia
The
Roberts,
Mexican
Brad Pitt.
is a very interesting film. You know, I think slightly underrated. And I certainly didn't hate this movie at the time. Watching it for this, I hadn't seen it in a while. The way I would describe it, to borrow a phrase from John Hammond, this movie suffers from a deplorable excess of personality. It is unbearably quirky and mannered and full of all kinds of personality baggage that is really hard to sit through for 3 hours.
It's just sad to me that it could have been a 5-star movie, but it's not.
Could have been a 5-star movie.
It's not. Could have been a 5-star franchise, but it's sullied.
Hey, speaking of 5-star movies, who's here to save the day? Our friend Spider-Man.
Hey.
Okay, so we're going to preface this. Let's just give our 5-star rating of Spider-Man 3.
We won't go any deeper because we are at the end of this episode.
Shit's going to go down at the end of this episode. My rating is 2.5 out of 5 on the rewatch. Gabe, what's your 5-star rating?
I'm going to say 3.5 out of 5.
Okay.
It's a gentleman's 3.5 out of 5. Like it's solidly there.
That's, to me, the head says 3.5, but maybe the heart says something a little more inflated than that.
Maybe a 4? You don't want to just say 4 just for fun?
Yeah, fuck it, who cares? I'm gonna say 4 out of 5.
All right.
You know.
Yeah.
What is this, legally binding? Yeah, I'm gonna say 4 out of 5.
Benjamin?
Spider-Man 3 is my first cinematic heartbreak. It's a 0-star film.
A 0
Wow.
star?
Wow.
There's nothing of value? Come on.
There's plenty of value, but that only exists to cause me more pain.
Wow. All right. So, with that said, at the end of this episode, we are going to have a presidential style debate of Spider-Man 3. Gabe, I thought you liked it more, so that's why we kind of positioned it this way.
I mean, I do like it a lot.
Okay.
I love the Raimi Spider-Man movies, and I do like Spider-Man 3 a lot.
So Gabe will take the position of the person on the moderate left, and Ben will be the hard right.
Sort of like us in real life.
Exactly. Exactly.
All right. So the way we're going to structure the rest of the episode is we're going to kind of frame our discussion of the films around some superlatives. Some of the characteristics that are universal about these movies that allow us to talk about them together. It'll make sense as we get into it. The first one I want to start with, since it's the beginning, is which of these movies has the worst origin story? Are you guys familiar with the origins of these films? This is sort of standing in for Ben's book report corner this time, so I'm happy to walk you all through it if you don't have a lot of context for it.
I mean, we all know Pirates of the Caribbean is based on a boat ride.
A 3-minute boat ride.
At Disneyland. Like, that's a given.
A great ride. Has always been great. Is a little less great now, but was great at the time.
Do you think it's less great that they've added stuff from the movies? Or?
Yes, that is
Okay.
what I think.
I would say that that's the origin for the first movie, which I don't know who wrote the first movie, but clearly they were inspired by many things, the ride included, but not just the ride. And they made a good movie out of a ride.
I mean, isn't it pretty much the same creative team? It's like those guys, Rossio and something or other, are the writers for all of the first three?
Yes.
What I learned, though, I did a little research, and it was that those writers like couldn't get a script together in time before filming, and they were like coming up with shit on the fly. Like the script was not ready.
Maybe that's because they based their movie franchise off a 3-minute theme park ride.
Well, I think it was more of a kind of thing where it's kind of the True Detective season 2, where they were just forced into production and they had to write something. Because I don't know, like they based the first movie off a theme park ride. The same argument holds. They're building off a movie at this point, not a theme park ride. So like, I just don't know if they had enough time to come up with a good enough story to justify a continuation of literally every character in the first movie, as well as write 2 movies at once, 6 hours worth of movie. That's a really hard ask. And the movie got like pushed into production, both movies at the same time. I have a quote here. The writers would accompany the crew on location, feeling that the lateness of their rewrites would improve the spontaneity of the cast's performances.
That's great PR.
That's what I was saying. That sounds like someone after the fact.
A fucking pro drafted that.
So like Gore Verbinski was like, I have an idea for an action set piece where this is for the second movie, but there's 3 guys sword fighting on a windmill that's rolling down a hill. And like they backtracked and figured it out. And I feel like that's why there's so many shitty MacGuffins and objects and just like bullshit that they have to track down, and that's why these movies suck so hard.
That's a good summary of Pirate's origin. I think it's well known, but both Spider-Man and Shrek have dubious origins as well. The Spider-Man one's also pretty well known, so I'll cover that briefly here. Sam Raimi sits down to write out what he wants for Spider-Man 3, and he wants to make a Sandman movie, and the studio says, sure, yes, okay, but can it have Venom in it? Can it have Gwen Stacy in it? Can we get Harry Osborn in it as the Green Goblin? Can his glider look like a snowboard? Basically everything that sucks about that movie came from a studio mandate. And Raimi he didn't have the will or the ability to fight back. Now, I think you had a really good quote about it.
Yes, on a podcast, Raimi said, "It's a movie that just doesn't work very well. I tried to make it work, but I didn't really believe in the characters, so that couldn't be hidden from people who loved Spider-Man. If the director doesn't love something, it's wrong of them to try to make it when so many other people love it. I think raising the stakes after Spider-Man 2 was the thinking going into it, and I think that's what doomed us. I should have just stuck with the characters and the relationships and progressed them to the next step and not tried to top the bar. I made the wrong story the wrong way." So humble, Raimi.
Raimi's a cool dude.
I love Sam Raimi, which is part of why I still like this movie. Even though, I mean, he is probably right about it.
Spider-Man 3 is like his Waterloo. You know, it's just like all these forces conspiring against him.
You know, Sam Raimi loved is 60s. You geeks, 60s. That's Silver Age comics, right?
He loves the Silver Age Spider-Man, the dawn of the Marvel Age,
which is pre-Venom.
He wanted a Vulture movie. You know, he wanted Mysterio to pop up.
It's interesting though. I think like with this, the Venom storyline is developed better
than the Sandman.
Or the symbiote stuff works better than like the Sandman stuff, which I think feels more extraneous to things.
It makes more sense to have that than to have a random dude that wasn't in the first movie be Uncle Ben's killer.
I think there's a germ of an interesting idea.
We've got Pirates with its theme park. We've got Spider-Man 3, just a hodgepodge of studio mandates of all the worst variety. And then Shrek. Shrek has my favorite origin of the bunch. To understand the origins of Shrek, we have to talk about our old friend, Jeffrey Katzenberg. He's come up a few times on the podcast. He was a Hollywood exec. He was at Paramount with his mentor and buddy, Michael Eisner. And when Michael Eisner gets given the head honcho job at Disney, he brings Katzenberg along, makes him his right-hand man, makes him the head of the animation department, and Katzenberg oversees the early days of the Disney Renaissance. But Eisner feels threatened by him, Katzenberg is disliked by the creatives in the studio, and he gets the boot. And it becomes his mission in life to get revenge on Disney.
Oh, is this why Shrek is such a FU to Disney?
Oh, absolutely.
That's pretty awesome.
Because he and his buddy, Steven Spielberg and Mark Geffen, start a little studio called DreamWorks. And Katzenberg takes over the animation department at DreamWorks. And he says, first thing, I know those guys over at Pixar are making a movie about bugs. We're going to make one and it's going to come out first. And that's why Ants gets made.
Wow.
Second thing, I bought the rights to this fairy tale that makes fun of fairy tales. We're going to make it, and we're going to do all that shit that those pretentious artists at Disney say you can't do. We're going to sell out. We're going to put in the needle drops. We're going to put in the modern comedy, and it's going to make a fucking $1 billion. It's going to bury them at the box office, and it does.
That's beautiful. Honestly, I'm moved by that origin story.
I like that origin story too.
The problem with that is once you've reached success, the drive is gone. By the time Shrek 3 comes out, Katzenberg doesn't care anymore.
Well, now it's, as we've proved earlier, it is strictly about making money at this point. We're going to put Shrek's green face on every goddamn product in the world.
So which film has the worst origin?
I think for my story about the Pirates writing, specifically with Pirates 2 and 3, that really is sad, because maybe if they had an extra couple months or year to cook it a little bit more, they could have made a worthy successor to the first Pirates movie.
I guess like worst in the sense of like what bums you out the most in terms
I don't
of
know. Or I mean, worst can mean a lot of things.
That's true. Okay.
Katzenberg's revenge can be kind of fun in like a Hollywood insider way, but also terrifying in what it says about the art form.
Especially since it was number one. It's like all these children were influenced by an act of revenge.
Just a vindictive bit of corporate one-upsmanship.
I mean, I think that's kind of funny more than just...
They're just dyeing their tongues green just so some guy can get his rocks off at corporate meetings.
Yeah, some guy's grudge with middle management. I was going to say Spider-Man 3 just in the sense that... Because I like the movie because I do think Sam Raimi's personality and like talent still shines through that movie. And I think in a world where, I don't know, he either was left to his own or got better studio mandates, then I think it could have been a very, very good movie.
I think I'm going with Pirates because there just isn't enough there to sustain a franchise, and by the third one, you can really feel it.
The next category is Best New Character. I came up with 4 for this. So the 4 that I came up with were Sandman, but just the sandy part of Sandman. Just the sand. Because that is some cool visual effects. You gotta be honest.
Also, the performance is somehow more moving when he's animated bits of sand.
Also from Spider-Man, the maitre d', played by Bruce Campbell. A great performance. He cameos in every single one, always playing a new character, and he's just wonderful in his one scene where Toby's gonna propose to MJ. I put down Edward Teague, played by Keith Richards.
Yes.
The cameo everyone was waiting for on Tippy Toes.
I rewatched Pirates 3 on Disney Plus, and they had some extras and they had some featurette shot at the time of like Keith Richards' day on set that is honestly very fun to watch because Keith Richards is being Keith Richards, and like Johnny Depp is like, hey man, I based this all on you, and Keith Richards is like, I based myself on well, someone who couldn't fit in this room. It's like, are you talking about you based yourself on God? Like, I don't know what he's talking about, but Keith Richards rocks. I fucking loved it. I agree with that. Edward Teague is definitely one of the top 4 new characters in these sequels.
Ben, I don't want you to say anything because, spoiler alert, Ben put Edward Teague in worst new characters. So he can have his say.
Wow.
He can have his say later. The final best new character is also Pirates. I didn't have any from Shrek, unfortunately.
It's because there are no good new characters.
We'll get there.
Shrek.
But the other best new character is, and it's a little bit of a stretch, but good guy Barbossa. Good Barbossa.
I'm okay with it because every opportunity to shout out how good Jeffrey Rush is in those movies is worth it.
He's best actor for sure. We don't have that as a category, but he is definitely best actor for the 3 movies.
Yeah, I love Barbossa.
He's so good at just that classic Long John Silver pirate shtick.
It's funny because him and Jack are fighting to be the captain, and I'm like, clearly Barbossa is the captain. Whenever Jack is in captain mode, it's so lame. He's just like, round up the rock. Barbossa puts like music into it. He's so good at being a pirate captain.
We're diving into hell, you scurvy dogs.
But he's like happy about it. Jack as captain is always so forceful and like he's just kind of belting out orders. But like Barbossa just loves it. He loves being a pirate captain.
He loves being a pirate.
Jack loves being a down on his luck loser. And then exceeding expectations. But Barbossa excels at being the powerful pirate captain. So And it's just nice to see him as a good guy in this movie.
I do remember when I saw Pirates of the Caribbean 2 Dead Man's Chest in theaters that the theater like went crazy when Barbossa came back and like bit into his apple. And I still think that's a very fun, cool, big, get everyone to cheer scene where he's like, wait, you're on my ship or whatever he says.
It feels very much like the end of Iron Man with Samuel L. Jackson showing up almost.
It's very proto Marvel for sure. So who's the winner here? I'm gonna give it to Barbossa, but if you guys have a differing opinion, I can't believe these are the 4 that we came up with for these 3 movies.
I want to say for Sandman, the best part of Spider-Man 3 for me are the Sandman creation sequences. They are absolutely astonishing filmmaking.
Yeah, those scenes rock.
And the how much character Raimi is able to imbue into the CGI sand monstrosity that barely has a face is just a testament to his power as a filmmaker. And for that reason alone, I would love to give it to Sandman. I think I'm not willing to separate Sandman from Flint Marko the way you have done here, Nat. So that's kind of a mark against him. So instead, I'm going to give it to the Maitre D'.
The Maitre D'.
Because that scene is comedy gold. Bruce Campbell is perennially underappreciated. I love that every film he gets slightly more to do, and this is his best performance in the Spider-Man movies.
I know that Thomas Hayden Church was like kind of hot off of Sideways when he was cast in this, but I wonder like Sandman is scored with this like very monster movie theme, and there's like a little bit of Godzilla in how he's presented later in the movie, but earlier in the movie when he's being created, I feel like there's a lot of Universal monster movie influence. And I bet like Sam Raimi liked the kind of like Boris Karloff-esque drawn quality to Thomas Hayden Church's face, which I think is used to great effect in the movie.
He was cast because of the way he looks in that green striped shirt. Like, he looks like he walked off the comic book panel.
But I'm going to say for favorite new character, I'm going to say Topher Grace's Venom. I fucking love his performance.
Oh no!
This little snot.
Sneak attack Venom.
This little shit. I really like I like Topher Grace a lot. I like his performance. And you know what? I'm sorry, internet nerds from 2007. I don't care that he's not as buff as Eddie Brock from the comics. Sorry, Rotten Tomatoes general discussion forum. I think Topher Grace's Venom is fun.
I'll be honest, I did put Eddie Brock in Best New Character at first, but I couldn't separate him like I did with Sandman because he's in the Venom costume with his face, and I just had to put them together in Worst Character. So we'll get to that. But thank you for the surprise nom.
And Gabe, in your corner, I will say that my second favorite part of Spider-Man 3 is Eddie Brock in the church praying to God to kill Peter Parker.
Yeah, I love
Brilliant moment of characterization.
All right, let's move on to Worst New Character. We've talked about Eddie and Venom just briefly, and we've also talked about Edward Teague. Do you have anything to say about Edward Teague, Ben?
I don't understand how you guys can think this is even a character. He is a cameo, and they invest so much into it because of some stupid thing Johnny Depp said on a press tour where he's like, oh yeah, based off Keith Richards. And now we have to have a fucking 5-minute scene of Keith Richards in this movie that is so overstuffed that it is almost 3 hours long. I hate everything about the Pirate Lords generally, and the fact that Edward Teague isn't even one of those plot critical characters, but is still tied in with that. Just get rid of him. Cut him out of the movie.
Depp built a career renaissance on saying that he based Jack Sparrow off of Keith Richards. He got an Oscar nomination, and they just had to go all the way with it. All right, I also put Flint Marko without the Sandy in Worst New Character. I really don't like this whole retconning of Uncle Ben's death. I feel like it's kind of shitting on the whole story of Spider-Man 1, and I don't like that. It's like, oh, there was a driver, but he didn't even get in the getaway car. It just kills me. And anyone that has a locket with their daughter, I immediately write them off.
But their daughter is sick with undisclosed disease.
Yeah.
We haven't talked about any Shrek the Third characters yet, and there are several bad new characters introduced to Shrek the Third that we at least have to mention here. There's Eric Idle as teacher hippie Merlin.
Ugh. It's really disappointing because there's a lot of good new characters in Shrek 2. There's no good new characters in Shrek 3.
The other major new introduction is Arthur, a young King Arthur, voiced by Justin Timberlake. I wanted to briefly talk about that. Like, I this was right, during that transition when he was trying to move away from being a boy band star turned solo artist, but still kind of seen as like this teeny music guy. This guy made teen music, into being like a legitimate vocal artist and an actor and like this multi-tool entertainer. This film is not doing him any service in that regard.
No, it's very bad. He is just doing his lines, basically. I don't know. I didn't feel anything from this performance.
The character sucks. You can barely even tell it's Justin Timberlake if you didn't already know that going in. Like, he just sounds like a whiny teen.
To me, it's just sad because for a franchise that introduced so many iconic, like, lovable, for lack of a better word, characters. I know it's all like cynical and money-making bullshit, but like, you love Shrek, you love Donkey, you love Farquaad, you love all these people that they Puss in Boots. Like, I sound like such a corporate shill right now, but it's kind of true.
You love Puss in Boots. You love it when he's on a souvenir glass available at McDonald's for additional cost of $2.99.
Yeah.
I always, when I was a kid, I loved Puss in Boots, even though as a kid, I didn't have a cat. And now as an adult, I do have a cat. So now I feel like I like Puss in Boots on a deeper
Even
level
more.
than I did then.
Yeah, I don't know.
I get the jokes.
It's just a bummer that it has nothing new to offer that's of any value.
The idea of offering criticism to Shrek 3 feels really pointless to me, but if I had a criticism to offer, the biggest one by far for me would be the way it entirely misuses the King Arthur mythology. Most of the first two Shrek movies are about taking established fairy tale iconography and narrative elements and inverting them or twisting them in some fun way. But instead of doing that with the King Arthur myth, they just plug them into some other random like sketch comedy character.
It's like a high school parody.
It's a high school parody, and then Merlin's like a drugged out hippie. It has nothing to do with King Arthur at all.
Yeah.
So Merlin's my pick. Fuck Merlin.
Yeah, for me, it's a tie between Merlin and Arthur. It's just so disappointing.
I guess I'll say Justin Timberlake. He's definitely not the worst new character, but like, I guess he's the only new Shrek 3 character I even remember. So I'll give it to him.
Okay, let's move on to the Ozymandias moment. We all know Percy Shelley's poem Ozymandias, which is all about a shattered statue in the middle of a desert that is commemorating a civilization that's long gone. So this award is a moment in the movie that just makes you think of the former glories of the franchise and just how far we have fallen. So this
the ruin that has befallen it.
Yeah, this is just a very negative moment that just makes you think like, man, this used to be great. I have a couple here. My first one is Shrek the Third's multiple failed music drop comedy attempts. The first two Shrek movies do such a good job with pop music being incorporated into it, and it's really funny and really fun. And this movie just fails at those drops. It just doesn't know what it's doing with these funny music drops. And there's just multiple times where you're like, that was a really bad music drop. That was like Live and Let Die at the frog funeral.
Woof. Woof.
Immigrant Song.
That was weird.
Immigrant Song.
Oh, yeah. Immigrant Song for like 3 bars, but then they didn't want to pay for any more of it, so they switched to a different song.
I changed to Barracuda. I was like, why didn't you just keep it with Immigrant Song? Very strange.
Yeah, that was weird, because Barracuda can't be cheap either. Maybe it's less than Immigrant Song, but it's a pretty big song, too.
My other one from Shrek is just Shrek's poo-poo and pee-pee and vomiting babies everywhere. There's just so much poo-poo and pee-pee and caca in this movie. And vomit. Projectile vomit. I watched the trailer to Shrek the Third, and it ends without showing the babies at all, and then it's like, but there's more! And then it's just the shot of Shrek looking at the carriage and then getting projectile vomited on. And I was just imagining like being a parent in 2007 and your kid's like, oh my gosh, Shrek. And you're just like, fuck, no.
Kill me.
Okay, I also have the little Jack Sparrows in Jack Sparrow's head.
I have seen The Heart of Darkness, and it is when there are multiple Jack Sparrows on screen at the same time.
Well, even in the Davy Jones locker, I'm fine with it. But when he's in the brig or whatever, and there's little Jack Sparrows talking to him, telling like a good one and a bad one, the devil and the angel on his shoulder, man, nothing beside remains. Did you guys have any thoughts on Jack's kind of? I mean, if you want, this is a perfect opportunity to talk about Jack Sparrow.
I like some moments with the multiple Jacks. I liked the Davy Jones Jack whose brain is showing. That was kind of enjoyable.
I liked it when he licked his own brain. That gave me some Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas vibes, where I was like, okay, this movie's pretty weird. But then he overdid it when he said, I dropped my brain. It's like, we saw the brain, dude. We know. You guys were talking all about Jack Sparrow earlier. Do you want to get into like the depth of it all, or
Jack Sparrow sucks in this movie. He was a great character in the first movie. He walks this line between roguish and charming and dastardly and never knowing exactly how much he's planned and how much is improvisation, you know. And in the later movies, he is the wild card comic relief, and it's not nearly as fun or engaging. It feels like he trips his way through the movies instead of he actually might have carefully planned it.
I just have this vision of Jack Sparrow in this movie that I think would be really cool, that they kind of touch on for a minute when they rescue him from Davy Jones' locker and he thinks everything is a hallucination. And I was kind of like, man, wouldn't it be cool if like Jack goes, he's basically like Timothy Leary. He like goes into the next dimension mentally. Which, like, he already was in the next dimension mentally, but, like, now he
realizes it's a movie!
Yeah, or not even that, something like that. Like,
I would love
he just
that.
thinks it's not real anymore. He thinks he's in, like, the fifth dimension or something. Like,
I mean, that's the only way to explain his actions throughout the film, almost.
but if they actually did something with it, like, if the whole movie he's like, you're not real, I am on a trip right now. And then it's like, he does these amazing acts of courage where he, like, flies over the whirlpool at the end of the movie because he thinks he's in a dream. Like, that could be like some crazy Fellini shit, but the movie doesn't actually go there.
I think that's what the kids wanted from Jack, too, is some Fellini shit.
Yeah, for sure.
I think when I was a kid, because I do remember I was very into the first one. And the sequels I saw and liked fine, but, like, never really revisited them. But in an interview or something, I feel like they said that, like, they were writing, like, a Han Solo-y guy. Or I do know that, like, when they were making the first one, Johnny Depp's interpretation was unexpected.
Right. He, like, kind of made it up himself, almost.
Yeah, and then for the sequels, they kind of, like, wrote it for what Johnny Depp was doing. And I don't know if that, like, made it lose something.
You need the contrast.
Yeah, or like that Johnny Depp then like felt emboldened to just do whatever he wanted, and they felt like, you know, this guy knows what he's doing, we'll just put it all in the movie.
I don't think it's all on Depp.
I don't think so either. I think it's like a bunch of different things going on. I also don't hate Jack Sparrow in this movie. I don't think he's that good, but I don't think he's the worst part of the movie by any means.
He's my Ozymandias moment because he was the best part of the first movie.
We didn't talk about any Spider-Man Ozymandias moments. The moment for me where the burden of plotting undoes the film is Harry's amnesia. It's when the doctor says, guess what? He doesn't remember the last movie. You're good.
It makes no
then
sense.
I'm like, that's the moment where I look back and say, how did we get here?
It's really
what
bad.
happened?
What do you guys think of James Franco's performance in Spider-Man 3?
Well, we have a category coming up for it.
Okay.
I kind of enjoyed it, to be honest, in like a Tommy Wiseau fashion.
I think James Franco, because he himself is such a weird guy, he can't play a normal person. And movies that cast him as a normal person aren't successful. But I think, like, in this movie, it works. I'm very entertained by him in this movie.
I like goofy, forgetful Harry. I like goofy, sinister Harry after he gets his memories back. I don't like angsty, troubled Harry.
Right.
I don't think Franco sells that stuff
Yeah,
very
he's
well.
not very good at that.
I agree with that. Yeah.
I mean, one of my favorite moments, to spoil an upcoming superlative, is the pie line.
Oh, I love the pie line too.
Looking at the waitress and she's like, "How was the pie?" And what does he say exactly? You know,
So
it's
good.
It's so good.
So good.
And the look on his face is wonderful. Like the boldness of that acting choice. It's so amusing and so entertaining, and exactly what that scene needed at that moment.
And then Peter Parker across the street makes eye contact with him, and a bus passes, and then he's gone.
And they kill the moment.
Wait, no, I like that moment.
They already had the perfect button to that scene. They didn't need another button.
What, you know,
Gentlemen,
if you hit one home run
gentlemen.
during the game, when you come back up to bat, you can't hit another home
Gentlemen,
run.
please.
You know, like-
Gentlemen, please.
They hadn't even finished rounding the bases yet.
Hold on. Guys, stop. I'm gonna give this one to Shrek's multiple failed music drops, because I just think, again, the music drops are so good. I don't know if you guys want to actually award one for this Ozymandias moment.
For me, it's the Sparrows. It's the
Oh,
Jack
it's the Sparrows.
Sparrows.
Okay.
I'm so tired of Jack Sparrow by the third movie that like the compounding Jack Sparrows is just like I put my head in my hands. I'm just like, oh my god, how long is this scene? Oh, it's 15 minutes. Great.
All right, Gabe.
I don't know if this, I don't know if this like qualifies for this category. Maybe it does. I guess I feel like if Chow Yun-fat was cast Pirates 1, his scenes would probably be super sick, but he feels pretty wasted in this third movie, and I thought that's a little bit of a bummer.
That's true. Yeah, it's like they would have given him something good if this was the pinnacle of the Pirates franchise. Okay, worst script. We have Spider-Man, Pirates, and Shrek. All three.
I just wanted to lay out their sins here. The Spider-Man script sins, the whiplash-inducing Harry plotline, emo Peter Parker, MJ being reduced to a damsel in distress again, everything with Eddie Brock. Gabe, I know you're a defender of that. The pirate sins, its nonsensical plot, the annoying love woes between the main characters, the prolonged, unfunny character bits, the dense but completely meaningless mythology, and the complete waste of a finale where you have two massive armadas lined up against each other that do nothing.
Yeah, they just start screaming at the sidelines while the two main ships battle.
Shrek's script sins are everything. Everything about that movie.
Dude, I'm giving it to Shrek. It's so shitty. It's at least Spider-Man and Pirates have some good parts. Shrek had no good parts.
There's a scene in Shrek where they literally repeat the same joke twice in the same scene.
When the Frog King dies.
When the Frog King dies, they do the same gag twice within 30 seconds. And I was almost like, are you going to do it a third time and invert it? You know, what is happening here?
Yeah, it's just sloppy shit. I mean, I'm assuming all of us are going to say Shrek has the worst script, because we seem to kind of like Pirates and Spidey in one way or another. But Shrek is just
It's
nothing.
a funny way of showing it.
Nothing of value.
Yeah, I would agree to that. I don't know, maybe, I mean, Shrek 3 comes in at 90 minutes.
That is
while the
true.
others are-
That is true.
That's a
You know.
big knock against Pirates that I should have listed in the script sins.
3 hours long.
I mean, that is something for Shrek 3.
Okay.
But yeah, there's nothing really to recommend about the script.
Ben, do you want to take the next one? I don't know this one.
Yeah, worst topical reference. Shrek obviously is full of pop culture jokes. There aren't any in particular I wanted to call out. Just they all suck. But the one I really want to talk about, the thing I really want to talk about, is the absolutely bonkers, bug nuts, insane opening of the third Pirates of the Caribbean film, where we watch a child being hanged.
Yes.
And it's full of this like post-Patriot Act, Guantanamo Bay suspension of legal rights.
It's crazy. And it comes within 15 seconds of the Disney logo, which is unbelievable.
How did they get away with that?
To me, the problem is that they stitch together action scenes is that they try to maybe overcompensate for that by going too deep on lore that's unnecessary. So for like that opening scene, the silliest part to me is like when they all start singing, yo ho,
They
yo
all
ho,
know
and a
the
bottle of
song.
rum or whatever. You know, when it cuts to the new bad guy and someone like goes up to him and is like, "Sir, they're singing," and he goes, "Good. I was wondering when they would start."
I think he says, "Finally, finally."
Yeah. And the singing like is not. It doesn't really elicit that much emotion or play into the plot too much.
Yeah, I just hate all the shitty things that they have to track down in these movies with the pieces of 8. The second one is even worse. It's like the dead man's chest, the heart of Davy Jones, the key to the heart of it's so overwhelming and just unwatchable.
When I said that the Pirate Lords were my least favorite new characters, I didn't really explain why. It's because this overburdened mythology that they spend so much time explaining and then one-upping and then adding new elements to. Oh, now there has to be a pirate king, and now there's the keeper of the rules, and now we have to free Calypso from her earthly bonds so she can do nothing and affect nothing. Like, if you cut all of that stuff out of the movie, there wouldn't be anything there, but that doesn't have any substance to it. The movie is like, it's a balloon, and there's nothing inside it.
It's literally like Will wants to get Bootstrap off the boat. That's the whole plot of the movies. There's nothing else.
That's the only character with a sound motivation.
Yeah, exactly. Everything else I can't explain why they do it.
I mean, Pirates 3 is interesting because, like, Gore Verbinski has some personality as a director, but there are these, like, there's that scene that really, I don't want to say rips off because it's, like, not hiding the fact that it's an homage, but that, like, Once Upon a Time in the West scene.
Yeah,
where
so strange.
Yeah, and there is stuff, like, I do feel like, if I'm trying to get into Gore Verbinski's head, I do think he views this as, like, his Once Upon a Time in the West of the Pirates mythos, where it's like, it's the end of the West.
For people that haven't watched Pirates, there's this scene where they are on this little tiny strip of sand in the middle of the ocean, and there's 3 characters walking towards another set of 3 characters, and there's this, like, spaghetti western music playing, and it's very West.
It's not even spaghetti western. It is like public domain, the Once Upon a Time in the West harmonica music. It's really, it's very, very close. It's certainly purposefully, and I don't think it's a bad thing that it is. It's just, it's interesting that I do think there's some, like, maybe pet, I'm not enough of a Gore Verbinski scholar to know if these are pet themes of his, but, like, there's something that he's trying for.
His 2 films after this are Rango and Lone Ranger. He's ready to move on to a Western at this point.
I don't think it necessarily works, but I think the idea of, like, treating a Pirates film as a Western and, like, an end of the West, end of piracy thing, like, I think that could make for a good movie. And there were parts in the movie that, like, were focused on that I enjoyed and thought were kind of cool.
Dude, see, we should have written this. We could have it with Depp thinking he's in a fever dream, and then also it's the end of piracy. That's, like, the movie that I wanted.
It is hard to square, because, like, in the first movie, pirates are not good guys.
They're all evil, yeah.
Yeah,
And then in this movie, their pirates are the ultimate heroes,
yeah.
fighting against tyranny on the seas.
All right, I'll give it to Shrek. I'm just gonna hate on Shrek on this because it needs more hate piled onto it.
It's the most boring of the 3, or it feels like it's definitely the one I enjoyed least.
Yeah. All right. Moving on. Best element of the movie that spawned unintentional brilliance / comedy. So the one that I wanted to call out is that there was so much promotion of Shrek the Third in 2007 that the alternative comedy duo Tim and Eric had a show at the time on Adult Swim, and they got so fed up that they started creating promotional material for Shrek the Third. And you should watch it. It's on YouTube. It's the funniest thing I've ever seen.
It's brilliant. It's so good.
They're just shilling for Shrek the Third.
I remember that.
It's great.
Yeah, that was really funny.
The only reason I'm glad Shrek the Third exists.
Exactly. The other 2 are very well known. You got to talk about emo / streetwalking Spidey, the iconic moment from Spider-Man 3 that has lived with us since it ever came out.
I mean, I would take issue with calling it unintentional comedy because I do think that's supposed to be
Well,
funny.
I also said unintentional brilliance / comedy. So it's just
okay, fair.
it's just
fair.
comedy. It's very funny. I laughed my ass off, and it's just sort of like not what you expect from these movies because there just hasn't been this level of insanity yet. There's been plenty of insanity, but not to this degree, where it's Peter literally bopping down the street like he's John Travolta and finger pointing at women. And then when he
repulsed
when
by
he
him.
enters this clothing store and then comes out in the same shot and then just does hip thrusts to a static camera. It's astounding. It is astounding.
I actually have always sort of liked this section of the movie, which is going to sound crazy for somebody who doesn't like the movie. It to me is the only moment in which Sam Raimi is engaging with his lack of interest in the property or like his frustration with the studio mandates in a way that produced something artistically viable.
I'm going to just throw my millennial old man cards on the table, but I think that this moment in cinema like invented the term cringe as we know it today. Like, because I was in the theater, 17 years old. My story about seeing Spider-Man 3 is that it was I had a ticket to it right after I took my SAT. It was going to be the reward for taking the SAT. And like me and my friends were so disappointed. And this had a lot to do with it because we wanted a Spider-Man movie and we got this scene, which now in retrospect, I love it kind of. But like just being all hyped up for like a summer blockbuster and then having this shit was like, it killed me. It killed me.
Mm-hmm.
The third unintentional brilliance comedy moment is another very famous one. It is Beckett walking down the stairs with the entire ship exploding around him. This has become a meme. This has become a reaction GIF on the internet. People have added text to it or whatever, and it's amazing. That shot is so unbelievable.
It is the visual that stuck with me. It's the only thing that stuck with me about that movie in the 13 years since I had seen it in theaters. I remembered it so distinctly.
It's unbelievably amazing. Not as an action moment, but just as a visual feast for the eyes.
Yeah, a way of visually representing a very specific attitude, emotional response to a series of events.
He descends the stairs in this like very fast leg moving way. And it's so good. And none of the splinters of the wood hit him.
That's because the splinters aren't there.
Well, I know, but it's just funny that like within the context of the movie, he's just perfectly descended these stairs while the thing literally explodes all around him. It's amazing.
Beckett didn't come up on anyone's best or worst new characters.
He's so much of a he's a big part of Pirates too, so we didn't put him on, but he's just a Norrington retread. Like for the main villain or the secondary villain, like I don't want another English guy like that. And he's not vicious enough to be worse than Norrington. I don't know. Just doesn't do it for me.
It is weird that character isn't just Norrington.
Right.
I like that actor. He was in Gosford Park, I think, right? Isn't that Tom Hollander?
Yes, it is Tom Hollander.
I like that actor.
It's always a great sequel villain to have somebody come in whose whole deal is, hey, all those fun characters and adventures from the first movie, guess what? I'm banning those. You can't have those anymore. It's a really easy way to get the audience to hate the person. It's like, it's the Thanos thing, right? Thanos saying, hey, you know what? We should have fewer of these Marvel heroes. Don't you agree with me?
Yes.
But the movie kind of betrays that because what I really want to see is like fun ship battle action. And Beckett is still pro ship battle action. He even wants pirates on his side. He wants to control Davy Jones, the ultimate pirate.
Right.
So they kind of failed in the execution, although I think the idea was sound.
There must have been a version of the script or the film that had this scene, but that like he had Davy Jones kill the Kraken,
Off screen.
like the main
Why
monster
would they
from
do
the
that
side.
off
Yeah,
screen?
that's so odd.
Because the writers were like, oh shit, if the Kraken's still in this movie, we don't know what to do with it.
Right.
Just pile on another 10 million and open it with killing the Kraken.
You know, there's a germ of an idea there, but like that scene where they're like standing by the like corpse of the Kraken to be like, is it, you know, it's not good that we live in a world where this fucking huge, hideous sea monster can't live anymore. I think, you know, I don't know. I want to like that scene.
It's
I
almost
really
as
do
if
want to like
it's
that
almost
scene.
as if some talented screenwriters came up with the ideas that would be good, but then like didn't have the time to flesh them out properly.
To do a one read,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. It's like Gore is on set right now. What the fuck are you doing?
Gabe, for me in particular, it's that Jack is waxing poetic about the death of the thing that killed him.
Of the thing that
When
ate
his
him
main
alive.
motivation is living forever. Death is the thing he hates most of all, but he's still sad that the thing that killed him is gone.
Yeah, Jack is sad that the thing that ripped him into 5 million pieces and digested him
And sent him to hell.
has fallen.
I'm gonna
by-
go with Beckett walking down the stairs. It's just such a great visual. But definitely watch those Shrek the Third promos from Tim and Eric.
They're
It's
so good.
funny. All right, two more. Best fever dream moment. These movies all have some crazy shit go down in them in one way or another. So I just wanted to give a little shout out to each one. We have Shrek's actual fever dream. Probably the best part of Shrek the Third is that dream sequence where he dreams that there's babies, and then Donkey has a Shrek baby head, and it's just weird and disturbing enough that it actually got my attention for a moment. Then you have Harry Osborn's insane plot thread / acting. The standout moment for me is when him and Peter are fighting up in his loft, and he's talking about how he kissed MJ, and he says, her lips that taste strawberries. Like,
Strawberries, man.
so batshit.
It seems like her lips should have tasted like the pie he had. You know, I don't want to turn this into Punch Up for Spider-Man 3's script. But if I'm in the room, I'm saying, Sam, it's gotta be the same flavor as the pie.
Maybe it was a strawberry pie.
All fruits are represented in Spider-Man in one way or another. The last one is, I like this, but it's Jack in the Locker.
Now, I think I'm having a fever dream right now.
Well, it doesn't last as long as you said. It's only 5 minutes, and it's cool. It's visually different. I like the little crab rocks.
It felt like an eternity in hell. It felt like I had been trapped in Davy Jones' locker with Jack.
I mean, maybe that was part of the point here. You know, they're trying to get that across.
I like the crab rocks. I like when all the rocks turn into crabs. I also like it when Calypso turns into crabs.
Oh, yeah.
Good crab stuff in Pirates.
Last one, saving grace moment. We're going to get a little positive here. What's our, basically just a favorite moment of one of these movies? I don't have any for Shrek, unfortunately. Not even the song at the end saved Shrek. They didn't even have a good
I've got
time.
one for Shrek.
Oh, you do? Okay.
I've got one
What
for
is
Shrek.
it?
I kind of liked the crazy cloud curtains that lined the stage for Prince Charming's play. I out loud said to Grace, "Oh, those are pretty cool."
Prince Charming's play, it was so, that whole plot is so bad.
Just the curtains. Just the
curtains.
curtains that are a bunch of hanging clouds.
Okay.
Looked kind of cool.
Okay. I like seeing animated frogs, so I enjoyed the King Frog for his brief duration.
Oh, this is another thing we're adding to Nat's box of weird fetishes. Mud, frogs, animated frogs.
They're kind of connected, mud and frogs, right?
That's true.
Maybe I should just go live in a fucking swamp like Shrek. Okay, but on to the real ones. Jay Jonah. You gotta hand it to Jay Jonah.
My only problem is this is like the worst of the Jay Jonah bits.
Yeah,
Like they're still
it's still Jay
good,
Jonah.
but compared to 1 and 2, like it just feels less.
I liked it when he had to take his pills and Elizabeth Banks kept buzzing him. That was pretty funny.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
It's a little eye rolly for me.
the next one is just the utter bombacity of Pirates. You can't deny that they took a huge swing. Will and Elizabeth getting married during a battle with fishmen on a whirlpool. I'm not one to be like, it was so epic, but like just the idea of that is fun to see in execution, even if it's not well done. It just like the mental idea of it is ballsy.
Yeah, I really like the bombast. I would say I liked Pirates 3 more than I disliked it. There's even a stretch in like the last hour and a half I would even say I kind of liked.
Yeah? Well, I know Ben doesn't like that last battle. And I'm pretty lukewarm on it myself.
To be clear, I actually do like some of the individual beats in it, but it boggles my mind why you would have such a buildup with two massive fleets assembling and then they would do absolutely nothing.
Right.
It boggles my mind that we would spend an hour on this plot line on how they need to free Calypso from her human body so that she can assist them in the battle, and then she does nothing to affect the outcome in any way. There's so much about the ending of that movie that feels like nobody thought it through. It feels like they were making it up as they went and nobody had an eye on the bigger picture.
My favorite part of Pirates 3 is the journey to Davy Jones' locker because like it's very clear. They need to go to the locker. It's just weird enough that you are kind of like, what's going on? But it's not unfollowable and just messy. And also the best part is that most of the characters are together. I don't like it in these Pirates movies when they all get separated. I like it when the crew is like a unit and they're working together.
I also think like Keira Knightley is particularly good of like the original trio in this. She seems to be...
She gets the best stuff to do.
Yeah. It was nice to see her as a hero.
Maybe part of why I like the last half of the movie, even though the last battle is a little underwhelming, it has a lot more Davy Jones in it than the first half does. Bill Nighy is really, really fun. And the special effects for Davy Jones are still very cool, I think.
Yeah.
The execution of that character is fantastic. It doesn't get spoken of enough. Everyone focuses on Gollum just because it was like one of the first prominent ones.
I mean, and it's a better movie.
Yeah, and it's a much better movie, and it's a deeper character.
The only thing Gollum has going for it is that he's first and in a better movie.
And he's a better
besides
character.
that-
He's way more interesting.
But when you like take those aside,
Does he have tentacles? No.
I feel like the list of compelling CGI characters that have graced major movies is like 2 or 3 characters long. It's like Gollum, Davy Jones, and Thanos, and like that's it.
And Caesar. Don't forget Caesar.
Oh, Caesar, that's actually a good one.
what from the Planet of the Apes?
Yeah, he rules.
All right.
I'm pro Caesar.
You have 2 more, Ben, for these.
I wanted to say quickly, I watched a behind the scenes documentary, a little clip on YouTube about the third Pirates, and just speaking of like the excess of the film and how vastly out of control it sort of got. When they did the part of the escape sequence where they flip the boat upside down and they're all hanging from the gunnels underwater, they decided that the only way they could film that was to do it for real in a tank underwater with all of the main actors in it, not with stunt people. And so they spent a week just filming those few shots of them all hanging underwater with them like training and then diving under the tank. They weren't using scuba gear. They were keeping it close to the surface. So they'd all have to surface as soon as they ran out of air, and they're wearing these big, heavy costumes. And like, yeah, in the movie, you can tell they're really underwater and it's cool. And it's one of the things I kind of like about the movie, but also what an insane waste for a moment that doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's excessive, but that's kind of why you appreciate these movies. They're just so... It's perfect for 2007. We had a fucking recession the next year. It's like, wonder why that happened.
That makes me like that moment in the movie, which I had honestly forgotten about. Now I think it's good. I think that's a cool moment.
Then you have 2 more saving grace moments.
Yeah, and they're both ones I've already mentioned. The Sandman transformation and then James Franco's pie line. Just both of those moments. But for me, it's got to be the Sandman transformation, which I just
cool.
Is one of the best pieces of filmmaking Sam Raimi has ever done. I put that up there with like the Doc Ock transformation in the hospital in Spider-Man 2.
Oh yeah,
I love that part. That's the best.
I'm gonna give it to Jay Jonah, best supporting actor. Okay, should we move into this Spider-Man 3 debate? We'll keep it brief. Gentlemen, welcome to the 2021 14-year anniversary Spider-Man 3 debate. There will be a series of questions. You will each have 1 minute to answer. You may give up your minute if you have nothing further to say, and you will be allowed a 30-second rebuttal. We're going to start with our first question, which regards ending. Benjamin Hain, does this film work as an ending to the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy?
Well, first I'd like to thank you all for bringing me here. No, doesn't work as an ending. I mean, I'm inclined to say no, just because it's, you know, it's the worst film in the trilogy. So it's like, instead of a beautiful climax, you get this, you know, wet fart. It's the last dregs dripping out, and all of that feels bad. I also feel like it doesn't advance the characters in a way that feels like it brings them to completion. The only thing it really does that for is Harry. Harry's the only character who's really brought to a satisfying dramatic payoff for where his character was in the first two films. The other characters are kind of reset or given clumsy new arcs to fulfill in order to sustain their stories, when honestly the ending for the second one could have just been the ending of Peter and Mary Jane's story and been more beautiful and satisfying for it.
Gabe?
I take Ben's points well. It is, even though I like the movie, I would agree it is the weakest of the three. Although that is often the case with trilogies. And I think, like, much like Return of the Jedi, it's a flawed movie that I think in its final moments does actually have a pretty satisfying resolution for the characters. Tying it all to Harry's death is pretty effective. And on this time rewatching it, which was my first time watching it in full, it struck me like how melancholy the ending is. But it feels like, if I would guess, that Sam Raimi wanted the ending to be them, Mary Jane, Peter Parker, and the dying Harry looking out at the sunset, which I think is an effective ending. And I would guess the studio wanted him to have that moment where Peter Parker and Mary Jane dance again. But even that is not really fully resolute or happy. Peter does some very fucked up things in this movie to which I don't think a neat or tidy resolution would be earned. And I think Harry's story ends and Peter Parker's and Mary Jane's kind of has to go forward uncertainly into the future. And I think that works as a resolution for these
Mr.
films.
Laks, you definitely went over the 1 minute mark, but Mr. Hain, if you have
I'm sorry, we're supposed to
if
keep
you have
1
a
minute.
rebuttal, Mr. Hain. Oh yes, classic. Okay, yes.
I mean, if you could give us some indication of what our
Well,
time
we don't
has
have the
expired.
we don't have a clock anymore. I don't
You can
I don't
just
want to
gently
just
say
interrupt.
time.
Okay.
I'll bullshit forever, Nat. I can.
All right. The gloves are off, gentlemen. The gloves are off. Okay. Moving on.
No, I have a rebuttal to this.
All right.
Right? I get a 30-second rebuttal?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Uncertainty into the future is not the way I want my superhero franchise to end. You can end your indie film that way. You can end your classic novel, but these bold, bright, colorful characters deserve an ending that feels more complete than that. Moreover, Spider-Man is a character who is defined by his struggle, and to end it with the struggle continuing forward is not a satisfying ending. It is not a change to his status quo.
Thank
This
you very
movie
much, Mr.
attempts
Hain.
to work
Mr.
around
Hain,
that.
Thank you very much. That was great.
No, I hate this format. This sucks.
Okay. Next question. Moving on. What is the perfect amount of villains for a superhero movie? Some examples include the singular Joker in the first Batman, Magneto's large crew of mutants in X-Men, the classic Riddler Two-Face team-up in Batman Forever, and the mishmash of villains in Marvel's Avengers Endgame. Gabe.
I wish I could say with confidence something like, however much the story requires. But I'll say, I feel like 2 to 3 villains. I mean, even in like the first Batman, Joker is the main villain, but there are like sub-villains in that movie, like the mob boss guys, even though they don't play big role. I feel like a primary villain and get like one or two sub-villains.
3 is definitely too many. If you are trying to invest each of them with an emotional arc, if 2 of them are new characters who have to be explained, who have to get origin stories in the film, then 3 is definitely too many. You can get away with some goons, some henchmen, particularly if you make them colorful or memorable, but there's really only space for a movie to be about 2 or 3 characters in total. And you better think carefully about who those characters are going to be and how deep you want to go in them. Spider-Man 3 fails horrifically in this regard. It's the reason that Too Many Villains is like a meme review of a superhero movie that has more than one villain in it.
Gabe, do you have anything to say to that?
I think that the problem is that Sandman and Venom both pose different threats and questions for Spider-Man that are each independently worthy of a Spider-Man filmic treatment, but together feel unfocused. But I do think independently they are good and worthy villains.
All right. Moving on. Is Tobey Maguire the best on-screen Spider-Man? Ben?
Yes, but not in this movie. The reason not in this movie actually has very little to do with his performance, and it has to do with the way the character is written. This movie isn't really about Spider-Man. This is the Batman movie Sam Raimi always wanted to make. And maybe after the debate I'll explain that more, but I can't possibly do it in 1 minute.
Gabe? Tobey Maguire.
I do think Tom Holland is very good as Spider-Man. I'll stick to the live-action Spider-Mans. I really like Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, and I think all the actors playing assorted Spider-Mans in that movie are good. But for the live-action ones, yeah, Tobey's my favorite. I do think Tom Holland is good, but I think Tobey Maguire's version... I mean, I don't know. I was also like a child when watching these movies, but I do think that the character has more to it than the later versions on live-action film.
It sounds like you two are in agreement. Final question.
I do have a rebuttal.
Oh, rebuttal, yes, of course. I'm not a very good debate moderator, if you haven't noticed already.
Are you going to stick up for Andrew Garfield, get some defense?
No.
Some Garfield defense in there?
What if Tom Hollander played Spider-Man?
Ooh. Maybe that's the secret to like
a middle-aged British
on
man.
Film.
Very short. He can play young.
What if Shrek was Spider-Man? Okay.
Oh.
I'm sorry to insert myself into the debate. Final question. We're going to kill this. I don't know if we'll ever do this again. What is the definitive final say on Spider-Man 3? Gabe?
I think, and look, if you want to have more debate topics, I'll keep going. I'll keep going all night. I don't care. Yeah, I think it's a case where it's like the studio put a lot of constraints on a talented filmmaker, and they can't. They tried their best to work within them, and it doesn't fully work. But they're still a talented filmmaker, and so the movie is really entertaining. It's really funny. I totally disagree with the idea that this is a Batman movie, not a Spider-Man movie. I think the idea that Spider-Man as sort of a nobody, local kid does good type figure, I think then taking that to think like, okay, Spider-Man's an underdog, and then when he's not an underdog, he becomes an asshole. And I think that's a good take. I like stories about people whose heads get a little too big. So I think Sam Raimi knows the characters, he knows tone, he knows how to make a good movie. And so is this movie a success? Probably not. But I would watch Spider-Man 3 before so many other movies. I think it's good. I think it's a totally fun watch. That's my take on Spider-Man 3. A totally fun watch.
Benjamin?
Spider-Man is the most important character to me that there has ever been. I read those comics when I was a kid. I read them when I was a teenager. I read them in college. I read them today. It really defined how I thought of myself and what I aspired to. He was inspirational in a way that only the best characters can be. And when I saw Spider-Man 1 and then when I saw Spider-Man 2, I saw that character realized on screen, and it opened up an entire world of possibility. It legitimized the way that I had always felt inside. And then the third film came out, and it showed such a lack of care for that character and such a lack of understanding of why he might be important to a person the way he was important to me, that it broke my heart. It made me sad about the state of the character, about the state of the film industry, about everything that I had hoped for. And that's why this film is a 0-star film for me, not because it's objectively bad. I think some parts of it are quite good. I agree with Gabe that Sam Raimi is an incredibly talented filmmaker and that his talent shows through many times in this film. That this film is eminently more watchable than probably the majority of films ever made. But for me, it will always carry the sting of that betrayal. It will always carry the emotional burden of being the film that took something that I loved and made it something I hated.
Wow. Well, with that, unless Gabe, do you have a rebuttal to that? It's a very emotional thing Benjamin just said. I don't know if you want to negate any of his feelings.
Yeah. You know, I mean, I guess I feel similar for like characters I loved as a kid. You know, Tristan and Isolde, Hamlet,
Macbeth,
Odysseus. Yeah. But Spider-Man is important to... I don't know. Ben or Nat, one of you said something about like Sam Raimi with something he did sort of like seeming to bristle back at the studio mandates. I do wonder if he like set out to make Spider-Man be as much of an asshole as possible in this film as some kind of conscious or unconscious fuck you to the people giving him notes. Because Spider-Man is a real prick before the symbiote in this movie.
I want to sort of break this down a little bit more, I guess. I know that this kind of breaks the debate format.
It's okay. The debate's over.
My problem with Spider-Man in this, I was the winner, right? I was the winner. That's what Nat just said. He nodded to me in the video that we definitely have on right now. For me...
Nat's texting me that nod was bullshit, so, you know.
Wrong.
Just
wrong.
So the listeners
wrong.
know.
It's
wrong.
My problem with this film and the characterization of Spider-Man is not that Spider-Man is a jerk. That's fine. Spider-Man makes mistakes. That's what makes him such a great character. But it's this abdication of the central Spider-Man theme, the iconic line, with great power comes great responsibility. Spider-Man is a character based around guilt. He is somebody who is compelled to do the right thing because the one time he didn't do it, it cost the life of one of the people he loved most. And so what makes a Spider-Man story great is that struggle, is that tension, is that feeling that you can never be doing enough. The reason I said I felt like it was the Batman movie Raimi wanted to make is, one, he did want to make a Batman movie. He tried to get the rights before it went to Burton. He makes Darkman instead because he can't get to make Batman. And this movie is about how Spider-Man needs to work with other people. It's a movie about the difference between vengeance and justice for the man who took a loved one's life. Those are all Batman themes. Spider-Man, it's never about vengeance. In that first issue, when he tracks down Uncle Ben's killer, for a second it looks like it's going to be about vengeance. But what makes Spider-Man different from Batman is the moral of that is not that I couldn't save Uncle Ben. It's that I could, and I didn't. He could never have stopped Sandman. It's not relevant if there had been another person there who had shot Uncle Ben. He would have had no ability to affect the outcome of that moment. And he needs to have done that to be Spider-Man.
I think with great power comes great responsibility is very important to the film, even though it's muddled, because it seems to be about Spider-Man has great power, and in this film, he starts to enjoy that power, and in so doing, forgets the responsibility that comes with it. He's like loving the fame. He's kissing Gwen Stacy. He's ignoring Mary Jane. I think that drives the film, and I think that this sucks, but I think there's something a little subversive about that take on the character.
For sure, in a $260 million way, absolutely.
Yeah, in terms of like, you know, a product meant to make money, it's very subversive.
Let's talk about money, shall we?
Yeah, let's talk about money. These films actually had a pretty wide range of budgets, so I want to lay that out up front. Shrek animated film costs $160 million to make. That's on the high end for an animated film, but animated films are expensive anyway, so that's kind of right in the normal ballpark. Spider-Man 3, $260 million. $100 million more than Shrek. Pirates, $300 million. That movie's so expensive in 2007.
That's insane. That's really insane. Well, it's like a CGI budget combined with a water ship budget and a costume budget.
Yeah, like real giant ships.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
How did these movies do?
All three make a little over 300 million at the domestic box office. All make between 800 million and $1 billion worldwide.
So they're all hits.
They're almost all at the same gross, which means that when we come to the rankings, there's a little bit of jockeying here.
Yeah, so we're gonna finally reveal who the big winners were for this race of gigantic behemoth sequels.
Starting with the domestic box office in the United States. Number 1, Spider-Man 3 comes back after being upset by Shrek in 2004 to take the crown as the highest grossing of the threequels. It is the number 1 grossing film in the United States in the year 2007.
The big winner.
For the entire year.
For the entire year.
It's the king of the movies that we're covering for this season of Back to the Movies.
Nat, I thought you were going to say it was the king of the money.
It is also the king of the money.
Shrek comes in second place.
Unbelievable.
Domestically.
Unbelievable. Were people just
second highest
were they just all high? Or I guess it's just the kids dragged them.
Yeah, and kids see the movie multiple times.
And they ate Cheez-Its shaped like Shrek. My God, what a fleece! America was
They
robbed.
used Shrek Ode to Toilet.
Yeah. They say the recession was the greatest crime of 2007, but I think it was Shrek.
Third place domestically, Transformers, so that's not relevant here. But in fourth place in the domestic box office, Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End.
Didn't quite make the cut with the other two. I mean, it's 3 hours long.
But the saga is not over because the US is not the only country in the world. And worldwide, the number 1 film of 2007, Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End.
Wow.
My God.
Did old switcheroo.
Those Europeans,
That's
what are they
interesting.
smoking?
They really like Johnny Depp over there in France.
Yeah, that's crazy. The number 1 worldwide movie. So that's the true pirate king of...
The true Pirate King. We mentioned this a couple weeks ago. Number 2 film was Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. In third place worldwide, Spider-Man 3. And in fourth place worldwide for the year 2007, Shrek The Third.
That really just disappoints me on a global level that Shrek was number 4. I thought Americans were idiots, but everyone is.
Well, I think most of that is American money. I mean, I guess like 500 million of it is worldwide, but...
That's a lot of money. One quick thing I want to mention was that Spider-Man 4 was in development with Raimi, but it just completely fell apart. Didn't happen.
We learned from the Sony email hacks that they were like basically in pre-production actively on 2 films.
Yeah.
Raimi Spider-Man 4 and a Spider-Man reboot. Spider-Man 4 would have had John Malkovich as the Vulture. It would have revealed in the opening sequence that Bruce Campbell had been playing Mysterio the entire time.
What? Oh my God, that would have been cool.
Sounds great.
God damn it.
Yeah, I would love that.
It would have been great. And instead we got Amazing Spider-Man, which was mediocre, and then Amazing Spider-Man 2, which is one of the worst superhero films ever made.
Yeah, that one's really bad.
And then in terms of Shrek, there was just another Shrek movie, and now he lives forever as a children's VHS movie. And they're going to reboot it soon. Shrek 5 is coming. And Pirates also.
More Pirates. Minus Depp.
Shitty sequels, and now there's a new one coming as well. There's a new one of each of these movies coming. I know Spider-Man is kind of a different story at this point, but they're all still with us to this day. Let's talk quickly about some 2007 themes.
Gabe, you had some thoughts on this.
Oh, yeah, it's interesting. I do feel like both Pirates 3 and Shrek 3 had the same kind of anti-French stance that I think feels slightly Bush era. Like, they both have, like, big, like, French guys, I don't think you're supposed to like think are cool.
Okay.
In the movies.
I like that.
In the terms of the way that the films present them.
Great. That's fantastic.
In terms of our typical themes that we usually talk about, I didn't see any quagmire. I didn't see any paranoia, really.
Not really any corrupt institutions.
Other than the East India Company, I guess, but who cares?
They're not like corrupt. They are doing exactly what they're out to do, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I would say, he's supposed to be George W. Bush, maybe. Maybe they're supposed to be
Or he's like Dick
the
Cheney
neocons.
and they're Halliburton. You know, it's like private militarization or...
I think there's something to imperial excess or imperialist excess that, like, I'm not saying it's like a particularly smart take on it in Pirates of the Caribbean 3, but I do think that that's in the film.
Given how prevalent some of the themes like Quagmire have been, I thought it was notable that they were absent from these films. And I started noticing that there were some narrative similarities between the movies. Both Shrek and Spider-Man have these characters who were initially unpopular in their early films. Now at like a peak of popularity, everybody in their universes like them.
Right.
And that causes tension. And then we also have like these established romantic pairings that were fulfilled in a second film are now being tested in a new way in the third film in all three of these movies, and then are being reaffirmed at the end. And all these things are pretty like kind of rote narrative devices. And it kind of got me thinking that like at this point, these movies are just about sustaining themselves. They're just about like their own internal narratives. They're not about anything bigger than that, because the writers have to be so concerned with just the basic functioning of the franchise.
So you're saying that these movies are just like a living being that needs to keep itself alive.
Exactly, that they aren't engaging with the culture of the year in the same way that some other films might.
Right. They're just existing for the sake of taking up space.
The machinery is too big. It's too unwieldy. The ability for an individual to influence it, to make it speak to the truths of the moment, is much less. Much harder to do that.
They are very navel gazing. I think I wrote down in my notes while watching Shrek 3 that there was like too much Shrek lore in the movie.
All three of them are like that.
Yeah, they all become about like new rules of the world or fleshing out the world. They definitely feel like they're about the prior films with all three of these.
Just before we end the episode, I just wanted to say Orlando Bloom. I just wanted to say his name because we never mentioned him. He does nothing. I feel weird not saying his name. We talked about Pirates so much.
He's pretty good in Pirates 3.
Yeah. Did you guys watch all the credits so you could see the post-credits scene at the end when he comes back?
I did.
Nice.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Other than Beckett walking down the stairs, the only other memory I have of watching Pirates 3 in theaters is one of the people I was seeing it with turning to me during that post-credits scene and saying, "What are the chances that she was ovulating that one day?"
Oh my God. That's a perfect line to go out on. Okay. So we just want to say thank you to Jackie Saltzman and Andy Gagnon for our artwork and music that opens the episode. But most importantly, thank you to Gabirel Laks for going the distance with us on this threequel spectacular. My God, man, you're amazing.
No, thank you guys for having me. I had a lot of fun.
You're a blessing, man. I was so happy when we reconnected that I was like, Gabe's going to be the perfect man for this trio, to talk about this trio of trequels.
Gabe, do you have anything you want to plug? If our listeners want to hear more or read more from you, is there someplace they can go for that?
Not really. No, I don't really have anything to plug, but I mean, when I do, you guys gotta
plug
it hard. Yeah.
Once again, our socials are at BttM Pod on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, and you can always email us if you have any thoughts about any of these three movies or any movies in general. BttMpod@gmail.com. Seriously, we'll talk about anything. We don't get any emails, so like If you have anything you want us to talk about, we will fucking hit it hard. You can also follow Ben and I on Letterboxd, the social media platform for film lovers. I am Nat McGee, my name, and Ben is Hane101. And please give us a 5-star review. Please. I'm just saying it's really easy. Just give us one. We'll read it next week. It'll be awesome. And next week, I guess we're doing Less Caution. Okay.
You okay with that?
Yeah, I'm cool with that. We're really going between the big ass movies and the tiny movies no one has ever seen before. I love it.
Look, we need some real artsy fartsy shit right now to save our souls from these just commercially driven monstrosities.
I'm pretty tapped out after doing like probably about 10
Harry
I
Potter.
did 10 movies, I think, between this and Harry Potter, which is really crazy. Because I watched, 6 for this and 3. So 9 movies. Jesus Christ. What is wrong with me? So thanks again, Gabe. Anything else you want to say?
Just again, thank you for having me. This was very fun, and I enjoyed. I mean, these 3 movies came out when I was, I guess, a junior or senior in high school, so it was a little nostalgic to go back to these. This little time travel back to 2007.
That's what we're doing on the show. We're going back. So, join us next time for Back to the Movies. This has been Nat.
And I'm Ben, and we'll see you next week when we go back to the movies.